First of all, مرحبا بك Ismail.
Nice.
It's really a pleasure to have you, especially for this first episode of our webinar that we hope is going to be promising. We're going to have a lot of interesting guests like yourself. I'd like to welcome our participants too. Welcome everyone. مرحبا بكم. So, how are you, Ismail?
Very good. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. يعطيكم الصحة على العرضة هذه. I'm super happy to be here and to be the first of many, inshallah.
Inshallah, inshallah. So this webinar episode is going to be titled Product Design and Management, How to Engage Cross-Functional Teams in Strategic Innovation. So based on your experience in product design, and you were the chief of products and technical at Yassir, that's right? So we chose this theme that we know you have a lot to say about. So let's start. How about we start with a brief introduction about you and your background? Can you tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, sure, I can do that. Thanks, Fatima. Just to start, and also want to welcome everyone on the call. Let me know if you prefer me speaking in Arabic, English, or French. Happy to switch. And so just maybe by way of introduction, my name is Ismail Chaib. I spent the last 16, 17 years in technology, mostly in and around startups. I started my first company, I was 21. I was a student at computer science school in Algiers. I was born and raised in Algeria, and started, so the first company when I was 21. Sometime after that, I wanted to see the world, so decided to leave Algeria, landed in Europe, specifically in Berlin. Spent 15 years in Berlin, Germany. Started my second company a few years after that. It was a company in the fintech sector, so we were selling bank technology into banks, big and small, in Europe and outside Europe. I also worked for the World Bank, mostly on regulation, helping banks sort of innovate and transform. And then for the last 4 years, I was working at Yassir, which I'm sure everyone here knows. And at Yassir, I was leading the product and technology department. Grew the product and technology department from about 50 people to 350 people in 3 years, and obviously helped deploy some of the apps and services that we use every day in Algeria and in 5 other countries. So that was my journey. I left Yassir a couple of months back, and yeah, super happy to be on the call today.
That's really great. Well, I'm sure everyone here knows about Yassir. Everyone here knows the company. I'm sure everyone has used the app at least once. Can you tell us what was your role as a CPTO? That was your role. That's true. Chief Product and Technology Officer.
I was general manager for product and technology, which is, kind of same thing, but yeah, general manager for the product and technology department around the world. So we had people in about 25 countries, mostly 4 hubs: Algeria, Cairo, Berlin, and Paris.
Yes. Can you tell us about the role in itself? Like, what does it entail?
Many things, but basically, most importantly, you're responsible for everything technology related to all our apps, all our digital solutions that we provide, what we call our products. Like making sure that the product works, doesn't break, that the product corresponds to what the customer wants, and making sure that the product evolves with the customer wants and needs, and at the same time making sure that there is a high performing organization, so people that deliver these features and deliver these improvements.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say shaped your journey during this experience, whether at Yassir or at your previous business?
What shaped my journey? Good question. I think one of the most important lessons I got was I was probably 16 years old, and I started programming. I stumbled upon programming, and it was super. It was kind of one of these light bulb moments where you get this. Got this idea that whatever you have in your head, like whatever ideas you have in your head, you can actually, through this coding thing, you can actually make tangible, and you can actually create stuff just with your ideas and your technical abilities, let's say. So I thought about since then, and I still do think about coding as a superpower, some kind of superpower.
True. Some
Um,
consider it to be, yeah.
Yeah, and that was like a very powerful lesson for me early on. I was super young, and so that got me into technology, and I stayed in technology since then. So that was an important one. What else? What else? Yeah, and I think at Yassir, one of the most important lessons was, or what really stuck with me was, we can work together across different cultures, across different time zones, different countries. We had like people in 25 countries in tech. And so being able to produce meaningful work that impact people's life across all these cultures and boundaries, like that was also something really, really interesting, really enlightening for me.
Yeah, it must have been. I mean, seeing your background, you have worked with some of the most relevant companies, so that must have been like you're really proud of it.
I've been very lucky in my career. Yes, for sure, 100%.
That's amazing. I just wanted to say for the people who are joining us that you can leave your questions in the chat. You can access the chat. You can leave your questions there. And at the end of this session, we're going to be answering some of your questions. So let's dive into our main subjects. You are known for your abilities to scale. So how would you say, how can strong alignment be ensured between product vision, user needs, and business viability?
Good question. So again, do you want me to answer in English or Arabic or French, or what is that fine if I?
As you like. I would love to have some feedback from our participants. Est-ce que تحبوا répondre comme Ismail en arabe, en français, en anglais? No one is answering, so I guess you have the course.
Okay, so
Dunya is saying all three, so she's fine with all three.
but okay. How can you create alignment? I think you want to have a very strong vision. So you need to be able to, all the organization need to be able to see in the same direction. And Nakamel direction واحدة, one vision. I think having a strong, clear vision is really important. I think another point is to be obsessed with customers, right? So ultimately, a business works if it's aligned with customers' wants and needs. If a business produces something that customers want, right? That's like that's these are the businesses who succeed. So you want to make sure that whatever you're doing, whatever you're producing, is something that corresponds to customer pain, that respond to a customer need, right? So this kind of alignment with the customer needs is also super important. And then the third maybe dimension is you want to make sure that whatever you're producing is also viable, as in it makes money, as in it helps you run your business, right? At the end of the day, these are businesses, and if you
Yes,
don't make money, you're not gonna, it's not sustainable, you're not gonna succeed in the long run. And so
absolutely.
I think these three dimension, like, strong vision aligned with the customer that is also viable, that makes business sense. I think that's, and shared across every department, every team, so everyone is really aware of that, and kind of having that part of your culture. I think that's what would kind of create this alignment. And alignment is probably the most difficult thing to do, especially as you scale. When you're a small team, when you're like, I don't know, 10 people or so, you talk to each other, you know each other, you're spending maybe time in the same office. So it's easy to align. But as you grow like 100, 300,000 and more, it becomes a real challenge.
Yeah. I would say a lot of businesses, especially here in Algeria, are really struggling with what you're saying here. Some of them have like really great ideas on paper, but they struggle to put the customer into that vision, or to align their vision with the customer actual pain points. How, or what would be your advice for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, it's great to have good ideas, right? Like it's necessary but not sufficient. I think was it Mike Tyson who was saying everyone has a plan until they get hit in the face. So I think it's part of, yeah, you need to have really strong ideas and plans, uh, but it's not sufficient. You need to go to the market, you need to get feedback, you need to be obsessed with your customers and really iterate very fast, right? So like really having that agility of moving extremely fast, like building something, shipping it, getting feedback from the market, learning from that, and then going back to the drawing board, shipping, releasing, learning. So that sort of cycle is, I think, super, super important.
Okay, so it needs so many iterations.
Yeah, I
But
think iteration and like going iteration, getting market feedback, customer feedback as soon as possible, and going to this with an open mind, with like an experimentation mindset, right? So trying things, if it works, great. You double down. If it doesn't, then you change and you continue to iterate.
uh-huh. In your opinion, is there like any key steps to go from an idea to a scalable, marketable product? Are
Yeah,
there
so
like what we call a golden rules?
I don't know about golden rules. I think there's probably like there's always outliers, right? But in general, yes, there are some key step on, like there are different methodologies, and picking any is good. Like Lean Startup, for instance, has a way of doing this. There are, like really multiple methodologies that are out there, and people can research that. To me, what I like is probably like a 5-step process. The first step should be around, so you want to first get the idea, right? And you want to validate that idea, right? So you want to make sure that there is, as we were saying, there is enough demand, there's a real interest from the market to build this idea. The third step is to actually build it or build the first version of this, what typically we would call an MVP, a minimum viable product, right? So you don't want to spend lots of time and money on your first version, but you really just want to do something quick and dirty that you can, again, go to market. Once you have that, you start your cycle of improvements and you go to market basically, right? So you go to market with that MVP and you start your cycle of improvement. So that's the fourth step. So you really try to grow your user base and you start doing marketing and whatnot. And then the next step would be to, depending on the context, maybe you want to raise funds so you can go to the next level, or you want to scale it to other businesses. So depending on your context, but to me, it starts with an idea. You validate the idea in like very short amount of time with the real customers. You then build the MVP, and then you scale that. You go to market and you scale that.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, According to your experience, what do you think the step that most Algerian startups fail at, or where do they struggle?
I don't know. I don't know if I can talk for all the Algerian startups, to be honest. I think we typically we tend to want to build the perfect product first.
Yes.
And I think that's really, which, like, which is common sense. So you want to build a company, you want to sell something, you first want to build the best product in the world and then start selling it. So it makes, like, it's common sense, but I think it's not in the environment we are, like this whole digital world and how things move fast and whatnot. I don't think it's the best approach. I think it makes a lot more sense to, as I was saying, validate first, build a very quick and dirty version of it, try to sell that. I think your first version that you go to market with, you want to be embarrassed with it. It needs to be incomplete. Like, I think when the iPhone shipped, the first iPhone was to a large extent, was rudimentary in the functionalities. You couldn't copy paste, for instance, which is something like really table stake. So you want to go to market with something that would embarrass you, and then you learn from that, and you grow and you pivot if need be. You go somewhere else, but you really sort of move with where your customers take you. So yeah, I think that would be a common maybe. And also, I think if you start building and you want to build the perfect things, it will take you, I don't know, maybe 6 months, 8 months, 1 year for you to ship something. But by the time you ship something, but the time you get something to market, the
Someone
opportunity is
has already done it.
exactly, there is someone else who went much faster. And now with the whole AI tooling and all that, people can actually move extremely fast. So I think in this kind of startup world, speed is something that's super critical.
Yes. So if we are to take like one thing from what you just said is don't be perfectionist. Just do it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think for a long time, Facebook had this motto of move fast and break things, and it probably doesn't apply to everything. I think if you're a doctor, I don't want you to move fast my neck, but
Yes.
building, something, a software for like a consumer business, and maybe it makes sense to move fast.
Yeah, absolutely. So recently, Ismail, we've been hearing a word that is echoing a lot, which is innovation.
Mm-hmm.
We've been hearing it everywhere,
Yeah.
especially in the startup community. What is
Mm-hmm.
innovation exactly?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think if like if you get, I don't know, 10 people in a room, you ask them what innovation is, you probably have 11 or 12 different definitions.
Exactly. I want to know your definition.
Of what, to me, it's really doing something differently, right? So either you're bringing a new product or you're doing something in a way that hasn't been done before. So you kind of innovate in the process, but ultimately you're doing something new to deliver a certain value, right? So it's like innovation really wants to bring value to the end user or to the customers in novel ways, right? And again, to me, the novelty is not necessarily the final product, but it could also be the process that led to that.
Yes, most of the time when we hear about innovative products, it's not really the product that is new, but the way that they are doing it or the way that they are delivering this service that is new.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely possible. But again, the key question is how does it solve my pain? How does it add value to what I do?
Absolutely. So, how do we build this product culture that supports innovation and impact and the company's mission?
Uh, I think it's really about having, again, going back to this kind of crisp, very, very clear vision that we talked about at the beginning. I think it's also, I really believe it's also something that is a culture is something that we can engineer, it's something that we can build, giving the right sort of components. So I don't think it's something that is too far off, whether it is in Algeria or elsewhere. I really think that this type of culture can be built with a little bit of craft, I guess. And to me, it's built like you'll have to do two things, right? You'll first and foremost you'll have to do what I call HR hygiene, right? So you'll have to have the basis for your people, your teams to do their best work, right? What I mean by that, you can't have innovation, you can't really have innovation if people are not getting their salaries on time, if like they're not getting great salaries, if they're not if the work environment is really stressful. So there is a basis that you need to have, and then we can talk about innovation, right? So to me,
Mhm.
that's the base. Like
And
that's
you call that HR hygiene.
yes, exactly. So it's
Is
really
that
like
is that is that an original expression? Because to be honest, I've never heard this expression before, and it's like really amazing.
yeah,
HR hygiene.
I'm not sure, probably not. Yeah, I don't know, I probably haven't invented it, but yeah, but it's really the base, right? Like, so don't talk to me about
Yes.
innovation before you have all your HR processes in place and people are treated well, right? So that's the base. Then we talk about, so once we do this, which are everything that make people dissatisfied from their job, then we deal
Mhm.
with what make people satisfied with their job, right? So then we deal with the exciting stuff. Okay, so how do we do that then? So to me, it's about um, like sharing these vision and values, like having really values that are aligned with this culture we want to have, and living these values. I think the leadership needs to be role model, and leadership has an extremely important role in this case. I think we want also to have to build what we call psychological safety. So we want our people to be able to take risk without suffering consequences of that, right? Like you can't have a really innovative culture and so on if whenever someone comes with a new idea, you tell them, oh no, this is stupid, we can't do that. Or
They
if
get
someone
punished.
tries something, yeah, exactly, if they're punished, or if they try something and it fails, and then as you said, they're punished for it, right? Like quite the opposite. You want to encourage people to take initiative, try some ideas, speak their mind. So that's psychological safety, and to me that's really important. um, and yeah, I think that that would probably sum it up, right? So like having a clear vision, mission, values, having leadership as a role model, and then having psychological safety.
Very interesting. For you, did you have any formats or rituals that you have successfully implemented to accelerate this implementation? Maybe to engage your teams more?
Yeah, sure. I've tried lots of stuff. I've done lots of design thinking, which is this methodology that kind of innovation methodology that focuses on humans. Like, so it's called like human-centered design. So really try to build empathy with the end user and then walk backwards from the end user needs. So design thinking is really interesting. I've done lots of hackathons. I think I've organized 70 hackathons around the world in the last
That's great.
10 years. So hackathons are also really powerful, a way to generate new ideas and to kind of get this creativity muscle going. And hackathons just very rapidly. Hackathons are typically innovation marathons and innovation exercise where in 2 or 3 days we bring people together, we give them a challenge, and then after 2 or 3 days they come up with prototypes, applications, solutions, ideas to solve that challenge. Super fun. They work in groups. Super fun, super energetic. And really eye-opening. So for folks who are starting, in particular at corporate, kind of, I think corporate and startups really different piece, different type of organizations, and they should approach the subject very differently. But I think hackathons are great for corporates to kind of dip their toes into this whole innovation, area.
But like when we hear about hackathons, we hear about them in a general context. Like it's open for the public or usually for students or for anyone who can participate. Can you have the same thing within an organization, a startup or a corporate?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I mean, the internal hackathons are a thing as well, right? So absolutely you could do a hackathon just for your employees, and that's also really good, like to build this what we were saying, innovation culture and psychological safety. So a hackathon is a safe space where for 2 days you're no longer your title, but you can do, like, I don't know, the vice president can work with the team of individual contributors, and so kind of mixing teams like that, and you come up with new ideas, and then maybe you get an award at the end. And so it's a really good way to say, hey, ideas are welcome, wild ideas are welcome, and it's okay to experiment.
Absolutely. So like the key is to encourage your employees to be open and take initiative.
I think it's part of the
And
solution.
like you said, to give them the psychological safety to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think that, like for all the talks about innovation, and innovation is really important, right? Like it's not important because it's fun. It's important because we know, like, there are multiple studies that show that there is a direct link between innovation and like the company performance. So the most innovative companies are also the most performing on the business kind of indicators. So it is a business imperative to kind of invest more into innovation. But the problem, and in particular in corporate organizations, the big issue is that there is also what we call innovation theater. So like we want to pretend that we are innovative, but in the end, like in reality, we're just doing business as usual. And that's probably the biggest risk, and that's probably the most difficult thing to kind of shift. And it's really, it's a thin line between, like doing innovation, real innovation that changes, things, and then innovation theater, which is like, hey, we're doing stuff, hand waving, but in reality, we don't really change.
Okay, but how do you make it different?
How do you make a difference?
Yes, between real innovation and innovation
Yeah.
theater, like you call it.
Like, again, do we really have psychological safety, or do we just, like we talk about, do we walk the walk, or do we just talk the talk, right? So is business as usual impacted by innovation, or is there innovation in the corner and then business as usual stays the same, right? I think if you dig, it's very, very easy to know, to get the reality. But yeah, that's the big risk. If you're in an big organization, corporate organization, it's very easy to stumble, like to go into this innovation theater.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I wanted to get back to this point because you talked about the difference between corporate and startup. How is innovation implemented differently in both of these environments?
Um, well, I think in one environment it's a must have, and in the other it's a nice to have, right? Like in a corporate environment, you have your business as usual that makes money, and people have been maybe doing like for years and years working with the same process, is very stable. So innovation is, to a large extent, it's not a must have, it's a nice to have. Like, to a large extent, maybe you will lose market share if you're not innovative, maybe your performance will degrade, as we were saying, but you're not going to close shop the next day if you're not implementing innovation. So it's more like long term, whereas the feedback is long term. Whereas in a
Mm-hmm.
startup context, like, the feedback is short term. If you're not bringing something new to the market, well, there are many solutions that already exist and offer that service. So why do you exist? So I think in the startup context, innovation is more like a raison d'être. So it's really critical to who the company is and why the company exists. And so they have to be. Whereas in a bigger organization, like, maybe it's a nice to have thing, right? And obviously the size of organization, like the bigger the organization, the less psychological safety happens naturally, and so the less
Uh-huh.
innovation is prone to kind of emerge.
Okay, that's interesting. So, like for startups, you don't think it's a plus, it's a necessity.
Yeah, exactly. It's part of it's part of the why you create this company, right? Like, a startup is uh, bringing an innovation to market, right? Like, for you to succeed as a startup, you need to have strong differentiator. You need to have a strong right to win. Why are you the one that is going to succeed in this market, right? And so, if you are the same like others, then you'll have a much harder time to succeed in the marketplace. And also, startups, you have very limited resources, right? So you tend to be scrappy, you tend to be innovative and think outside the box for anything, right? And since you're starting from scratch, you don't have that organizational debt and that legacy that constrain you. Oh, you have to do this process like this, right? No, you can invent new things. So, like, if I'm starting a company today, maybe I will include AI in my sales process, right? So I don't have to, or I will include AI in my software development process. So I don't need to hire so many people, or I don't need
Mhm.
to have this particular process. So I can innovate more. Sorry.
Yes, when we talk about resources, we automatically talk about funding. And we know for everything that you want to do in a company, whether a startup or a corporate, you need funding. How, in your opinion, how to get this funding?
Yeah, sure. So I think, again, here you have this distinction between corporate and startup. I think in a in a corporate environment, you would want to build a business case and try to sell it internally to get the funding for it, right? So, and maybe you want to start with a pilot and then you scale it, right? So if yeah, for instance, you want to do a hackathon, maybe you need to prepare a business case to explain why this is important, what are the outcomes that you expect, what funding is needed, what are the resources that are needed, and you find a sponsor internally and try to sell that, and then once you have the okay, you go ahead and execute. I think so it's more like of an internal sell. Startup is really different, right? It's an external sell. So typically you wanna raise money from external funders, whether that is sophisticated institutional venture capital or business, what we call business angels, right? So it could be your friends and family giving you money, or you can be a VC, so a professional which job is to fund startups, right? And to do that, slightly different. You probably need to prepare a form of business case, but slightly different. So you need to explain why this is the best idea in the world, why this market is interesting and it's big, how you're going to succeed in this marketplace and differentiate, and how much you want to raise. And then you try to convince those people, again, either professional venture capital firms or friends and family, or what we call business angels, etc., etc. So it's really about having plans, building plans, business cases, and then trying to convince people to give you the money. And then when you get the money, you start executing. And in the case of a startup, obviously that money is not free. You'll have to give part of your equity. So you'll have to sell shares in your company in order to receive the funding.
Mm-hmm. Let's say you are a startup and you have the next big idea and you want to sell it to this venture capital. How do you convince them to fund your projects?
I think the first question is, do you need venture capital money, right? Because I mean, like we say there is nothing as free lunch, right? So everything comes with strings attached. So I think the first question that needs to be asked is, do you really need that money, right? Like, can you survive without? If the answer is that yes, I really need the VC money, which is totally legitimate answer, then you want to, I guess, high level, you want to, again, build a business case, like build this pitch deck, a slide deck that present your idea, present the market opportunity, talk about you as a team, why you want to do this, why are you going to win in this. So like really try to present that case, and also present how much money you want to raise. And then the next step is to, once you have your business plan, your financials, and this presentation deck, you want to try to understand who are the investors that could be interested in this. And again, could be friends and family if you're starting, and if you want to raise a little bit of money, it could be like people who have like long career, made their money, and now they want to invest in the ecosystem, or it could be professional VCs. And you start talking to them, you do multiple meetings, you go through due diligence, and in the end, hopefully one of them say yes, or one or many say yes, and you negotiate the contract. Again, how much equity you want to sell, how much of your company you want to sell, at what price, which valuation. You negotiate multiple terms, you sign the deal, you get the money in the bank, and then another story starts, basically. So that's like high level. And the fact is, we have the Algerian market is slowly but surely sort of waking up, or like moving in the right direction when it comes to VC funding. So there's recently some regulation that were passed in the country that helps people invest in startups in Algeria. There is multiple African VC firm who are interested in Algeria. Yassir has raised 150 million 2-3 years ago from one of the most prominent Silicon Valley investment firm. So it is, and we have Talenteo, another Algerian company, raised around a Series A, a seed or Series A, few months back. So it is happening. It's probably a lot less. I mean, not probably, it's for sure a lot less than our neighbors. or other countries on the continent, but it's emerging and things are happening, and good companies tend to find funding, whether it is within the country or outside on the continent.
We're slowly getting there.
Slowly and surely.
Slowly and surely. Are you optimistic about the future?
Well, this is a hard one. When I turn on the news, I'm probably not optimistic. When I go outside, I'm probably not optimistic. I'm in Europe right now. There is a heat wave. It's 41 degrees today. So that does not make me optimistic. But yeah, I try on the long run, I try to be optimistic. I think, again, if we see the story of our neighbors, I think Egypt is a great example there. There's a massive amount of VC funding. And I was lucky to work with super smart Egyptian colleagues. I built the Yassir office in Cairo, the tech office. And so there's a lots of things happening there. There's incredible people building super smart solutions, and they are funded for that. I think, similar things can be happening in Algeria. Algeria has a lot going on for it. Like Algeria is like what, almost 300 billion in GDP, 45 million people, a sizable middle class, which has an interesting discretionary income. We have a sizable diaspora outside the country that's also super connected. So there's lots of advantages. We're kind of going under the radar for now, which is great. Like this is where the opportunities are, right? Like when not so much competition coming.
True, it's a fresh market, and I think now, if you agree with me, would be the best time to launch a business in Algeria or launch a startup in Algeria because the market is still fresh.
Yeah, I think like probably yesterday would have been better, but now is the next best day. I used to have a professor at uni when I was in Algiers, and he used to say, en Algérie, tout est à faire ou à refaire. And I thought that was an interesting take. So for sure, there's a lot to do.
True, true. So let's say you are a venture capital.
Yeah.
What is the first red flag you look for in a startup?
I think it depends on the stage, but like for super early stage, you basically index a lot more on the founders, so the founding team. So it really boils down to who the founders are, how do they, why do they want to do this in particular, how are they as human beings. So I think that to me is the most important.
True. I see that you always get back to the root of all things, which is people.
Yeah, and when at an early stage, when you have like nothing but an idea and maybe a prototype or like an early solution, your pre-revenue, VC will really, it's a bet on the people, right? Like, so I was talking to a VC in France this week, and he was saying the VC job is to hire founders that are interesting and that are hungry. So it's kind of, you're hiring people, and so you wanna bet, you're only betting on people. So you wanna make sure that these are people you wanna work with, and that really they want to solve that problem and they're able to solve that problem. So I think, yeah, it boils down to the entrepreneurs, their background, and who they are as a person.
Do you have any recommendations or advice for these leaders, those founders, those leaders, the people who want to innovate?
Yeah, as I was saying, like I think you want to go to market as fast as possible. You want to be embarrassed by your first version. Don't try to be perfect. I think it's not, although it seems like it is kind of a speed race. It's more of a marathon. It takes years and years. It's typically in startup exit is like what, 7 to 10 years. So it's also going to be extremely hard, and probably you're not going to succeed. So, you know, nine out of 10 startups do not succeed ultimately. So it's really hard. It's lots of hard work, and the chances are slim. So you want to be super comfortable with that. I think the mindset, the mental, like how do you handle the stress level, super important. And you want to know how, you know, when to disconnect, when it's, you know, when it's okay to move on. It's not the end of the world. And I think also it's important to have a form of trial and error mindset and experimentation mindset. So like always try things, learn, iterate, and move on.
Absolutely. Do you have like a ritual or something you can share with these leaders, something they can get back to when they get lost?
Oh,
If it would be something, one thing to implement, just one thing, what would it be?
when you're, what do you mean when you get lost?
I mean, when you're doing innovation, when you're doing business, you usually get lost in the chaos. So it's good to have some sheets, if we can call it, something you get back to remember the rules.
Yeah, I don't know if it's so much about remembering the rules or remembering, you know, who we are, where we are, and you
Why
know,
we're doing this.
yeah, exactly. I think in the end, it's really a short journey. It goes super fast. Some of us are lucky to try things, and I think going back to like having a strong support network, you know, family and all that, super important. Going back to that sort of reality, I think, and putting things in perspective, at least for me personally, like putting things in perspective is probably what helps the most. But what specific ritual? No, I think really going back to the why we're doing this is probably what I would do.
Great advice. That was a very insightful conversation, Ismail. Thank you so much. I personally took a lot of it, and I hope our participants did too. So, do you have anything to add? Like one last word, perhaps?
Um, no, I think as I was saying, most important is to try things out and just jump again. If we have the privilege to be able to jump into this, I think you should probably do it. And I think also it's a matter of optionality, right? Like I think it was Jeff Bezos who was talking about two-way doors decision and one-way door decision, right? So if it's a decision that you do and then you can undo, it's probably something you should try. If it's a decision that if you do you can't go back, then probably you need to think through it a bit more. But my point is, like, if you go the route of entrepreneurship, it doesn't mean it's the end of if your project fails, you can always go back to salaried employment, right? It's not the end of the world. If anything, it's actually a good addition to your CV, because it shows you're entrepreneurial, you're innovative, you're creative, you try things, you know, you have a certain grit, which is like super important. So yeah, that would be my last words.
Great. Thank you. We're going to check the chats to see what our participants have as questions. So let's start with Dunya. She says, what do you think Algerian startups are missing to succeed?
Good question. What are they missing to succeed? I think probably like there are two things. Like if we look at the like Algerian market locally, so if your solution is for the Algerian market, I think it's difficult today to build solutions that can scale quickly, right? Like we have some limitation in terms of perhaps regulation, payment integration, the Algerian economy being cash heavy. I think that's a barrier. So it's not easy to kind of bring a product to scale a product across the whole country. I think that's one thing. The second thing is perhaps ambition. Like I think Algerian companies, Algerian talent, and I've worked a lot with Algerian talents, have nothing to has nothing on other countries. Like we have super talented, super smart folks that can build solution that can address the Algerian market, absolutely, but also can address a global market, right? So I think there's nothing that prevent us from thinking outside the box, bigger, and addressing global markets. There's several examples. There are already Algerian companies doing that, and that's great. There are also Tunisian companies doing that. We thinking about InstaDeep, a Tunisian company that was bought for probably 600 million or something by BioNTech, the guys who developed the vaccine. I'm thinking about Expensia as well in Tunisia, who sold for 100 million. And they were like full technical team based in Tunisia, and they were able to sell the solution in Europe. So I think models like that will be more prominent in the future, and I'm super excited about Algerian talents.
Hopefully, yes, hopefully. Speaking about the Algerian markets being cash heavy, what do you think about the new fintech law?
Yeah, super bullish on that. I think it attracted some attention in the continent. Again, talking to some VCs around the continent, I think they're kind of start to put Algeria on the map, and that helped. That regulation helped. I think there's few regulations in last month that sort of drove that interest. So yeah, like super bullish on all these trends.
Great. So we have also Nasira here asking, what local resources or networks help you the most in Algeria? Accelerators, grants, support programs, investor networks?
So I left Algeria a few years, like maybe 15 years ago, right? But when I was, as I said earlier, I did, like I had my first startup, I started in 28, I believe. And we actually got some grant money from the government. We won like some prize, and we also get incubation at Sidi Abdullah. But that was really the early days, so I'm not sure it was super helpful. It was really like the first generation. I think they improved a lot from there. So I'm not sure I'm the best place to answer that. But I think ultimately what helps is like your network, your domain expertise that you build through the years. Of course, investor networks. If you're have these investors in your network, that's a great accelerator. I think that I had also lots of mentors, advisors throughout the years that were critical in in my career, in my development. So that was also like having mentors was also super useful.
Of course. Anyway, I think the market has changed since we have so many accelerators, incubators, programs. We have programs like Algeria Startup Challenge. We have platforms like Soolvit, where we launch challenges and startups can get funding. So yeah.
I didn't have it back then, so.
Yeah, unfortunately. But like this generation, they do.
Yeah, perfect.
Which is a good thing. And last question would be, what advice would you give to young entrepreneurs starting a business in Algeria today?
Yeah, again, I think start as early as you can. Don't wait for the perfect thing. Another thing would be invest heavily into AI. AI is the one thing that is changing the game right now. So you should be leveraging that. It opens up so many doors. It helps you go much, much faster. So I think, yeah, AI is this generation's opportunity. And yeah, and as I think I mentioned that as well, like really try to, this is a bet, right? So thinking in bet is important here. So this is a bet. It has some chances of succeeding, some chances of not succeeding, probably 90% chances of not succeeding. So be comfortable with that. And if you still want to do it, if it's still itching, then yeah, just go for it.
Great. Thank you so much, Ismail. This was
Pleasure.
a really great conversation. It was a really insightful conversation. We're very happy to have you, especially as our first guest. I don't know if we could find a better first guest.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate.
Yeah. Thank you
Thank you.
so much. And I hope everyone enjoyed this session and hope you enjoyed this session. And yeah, I guess that's it.
Sounds good. يعطيكم الصحة. Merci beaucoup.
يعطيك الصحة. نايل,
سلامة.
merci beaucoup. Thank you everyone for participating. And that was our first episode of Innovation Talks. Goodbye.